I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can. Kurt Sonntag has a question for you while we wait for the meeting to start.
Okay. I hope I can hear him.
Was named for being on the Westport Planning Commission. The joint.
Say again?
That you supposed to be on there, not me?
Well, I think it's.
I don't know who is on the Westport Joint Zoning Committee right now.
So the website had Kurt Sonntag, but Kurt Sonntag says he was not appointed to it. So we were trying to figure out if maybe it was supposed to say Kurt Paulson.
I was never appointed to it that I know. In my previous run on Plan Commission, I was on the Joint Zoning Committee like for 4 years, I think.
Okay.
But it would need to be
I
an
think it-
appointed member because it used to be Chris Harp, Nick Adams and I.
Yeah,
and then-
we appoint the person.
Right.
Correct. I think it's Sonntag. Sorry.
Surprise.
Was this
New
the
to
meeting
me.
where he wasn't here?
Yeah.
And we had to appoint
Yeah.
him?
That would be funny.
He's not here, he's appointed.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it was. 'Cause there wasn't- we
Yeah,
had to-
if you don't show up to a meeting, you get nominated for things.
Yeah, okay, it's past 7 o'clock, so I'll open the February 24th meeting of the Middleton Plan Commission. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Adams,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Paniro,
Here.
Shaw,
Here.
Paulson,
Here.
Summers,
Here,
and Chair Sonntag is present.
Okay, thank you, Abby. We've got 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight. The first one is the request to rezone Red Tail Ridge Phase 3 from a planned unit development, GIP, to a standard zoning district. And is there anybody here to speak about Red Tail Ridge? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on Red Tail Ridge and go to item 2, which is the request to rezone 11.33 acres along Tribeca Drive from PUDG to a different PUDG for the Lacrone. And I know we have one person.
Alder Charles Myers.
There we go. Thanks, Daphne. My name is Charles Myers. I represent Middleton's 5th Aldermanic District, the district in which the proposed development is located. I am coming here tonight to register my opposition to the development as it has been proposed and the amendment to our zoning map. Approving this development will ensure a car-dependent, incomplete neighborhood in the proposed area of the development. This parcel was originally zoned to allow for commercial use, and while some residential use is something that I think the neighborhood and the city would benefit from, there needs to be more commercial space in the proposed development so that we can have a true, complete neighborhood in this area. Thank you all for your time and for your service to the city.
Thank you, Charles. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for that? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on Tribeca, the Lacrone, and then go to Plan Commission meetings of February 10th. Any changes, updates? Seeing none, I'll declare the minutes approved. And number 1 under action and discussion items is a request to rezone Red Tail Ridge Second Edition Phase 3 from PUDG to standard zoning districts. You want to talk about that or?
Daphne has this
Daphne?
one.
Okay.
I'll just say an update. So, under the recommendations, we are still recommending approval, but we will have to bring it back at the next meeting for the findings of fact first. And then at that meeting, you guys will be able to recommend approval to council for the rezoning. So that's the only update that I have.
So do you want any feedback? Is there
Yes,
anybody
any
that,
feedback?
anybody have feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. That takes us on to item 2 then under action. There wasn't much action going on there. Item 2 is a request to rezone 11.33 acres along Tribeca Drive from PUDG to a different PUG for the Lacrone. Staff recommendation is who has this? You?
Yes, before we go off, or before we move on, I was just gonna let Chad Wibben know, who's in the audience here, that from the first agenda item, there wasn't any feedback, so our staff would bring back to the next meeting the findings of fact recommending approval of the request. Moving on to the Lacrone. So I won't go through the entirety of the staff memo because this was before the Plan Commission recently in October. And I think that this commission is up to speed on the summary of feedback that was provided by this body to the applicant and the changes that were requested. So I'm just gonna focus on what has changed from the previous proposal. The applicant has added a 2,600 square foot commercial fitness space within building B3 that's shown on the screen, fronting on Tribeca Drive. Our staff was concerned about how customers would access this business. The area that's shown kind of in the darker gray is labeled commercial space, PK fitness, and common amenity space. It's larger than 2,600. We wanted more clarification on that and ensuring that we could make that business more prominent on Tribeca Drive so that it could be a viable business and have frontage on that street. The second change was that the development program shows that there is a restaurant within the hotel. But in the overall development plan data, the commercial space is not reflected. So we were unsure of the size and also very concerned about the viability of a restaurant tucked away in the location that is being proposed. Since commercial space has been a key component of city plans for this area for almost 20 years, we want to be sure that there is clarity in the GIP and on what the city can expect to see that will develop once an SIP is brought forward, and also what the timeline would be for bringing commercial space into this area. One thing we have noted with this development is that it's incrementally been changed and scaled back. And so there hasn't been any commercial space constructed. And our concern would be that the developer would proceed with this rezoning, build all of the multifamily buildings, except the ones that include the commercial component, and then ask for a change because those locations aren't viable, because they aren't, I think that there could easily be an argument in the future made that, oh, we have a hotel that wants to occupy this space, but a restaurant's not going to work because look at the location. So we just wanted to make sure that there's clarity between the applicant and the city, what the expectations are for any future SIPs. We also noted that there was an increased setback along Tribeca Drive, moving away from the urban street edge that was envisioned along the corridor and what is already reflected on the other side of Tribeca Drive. So it looks like the setbacks are 50 to 70 feet. We wanted to get additional clarity on that because the existing building is 10 to 20 feet. There was some reconfiguration in parking, but it was unclear the total number of parking stalls. I think there were some discrepancies in the numbers that we wanted additional clarity on. And then there also is proposed a new what looks like a duplicative sidewalk. So there's an existing sidewalk along Tribeca, but it appears that there's another sidewalk that's being proposed not only on this property, but also on the existing senior housing development. So we wanted to get more information on that as well. We continue to have concerns with the primarily single-use residential density that is proposed in this project. We're concerned that it's moving further away from what was planned to be a vibrant and walkable mixed-use neighborhood. And we want to make sure that any commercial space that is included in the plan is given careful consideration and designed for success. So that is kind of the summary of our staff report. The applicant is here, I'm sure would be interested in speaking to the commission.
Sure. Anna?
Yeah, thank you for your time, Fernando Escobar. Jordan Myers with JLA. So happy to take any questions. I do know, and kind of looking our notes here, obviously, we take all staff feedback and do our best to incorporate, a master plan that's going to fit the space. The first thing I want to kind of back up to is if you see the exhibit that's up now, this space was contemplated as something that just isn't, viable anymore across the street from our site. That was meant to be a grocery store. To the right of our site, there's an existing senior facility that was intended to be a big box retail. Obviously, staff had great intentions and we were in a different place of the market at the time. But the current need is, if you read all macro reports of the city, and I've been in meetings here where we've discussed the housing plan, looking at affordability. There's, I believe it noted like 300 plus units per year that are needed. Now, when you talk about units, obviously you're not just looking at single family homes, you're looking at apartments. And we think that we have a development here that has received feedback that we received in the past and has incorporated it. I do want to, I guess, speak to some of the feedback in regards to having a duplicitous sidewalk. We can color coordinate that a little bit better, but the idea is we're trying to show both bike and pedestrian lanes that we intend to have on the site. We believe that that is a great way to have a sense of place and promote, obviously, a healthy lifestyle for what we consider to be a great community. In regards to the hotel and its viability, I can, kind of let the committee peek behind the curtain a bit and let you know that we have someone that's interested. It's a major brand, I'll say it. It's Hilton. They're actually going to fly in tomorrow to look at the site. They've obviously, before they fly in and look at sites, they do their due diligence. They look at things such as a STAR report, which is specific to hospitality metrics. Again, they would not look at a site if it weren't viable. In speaking to the commercial component, again, I do want to stress that the hotel itself is commercial. So when we're speaking about total square footage, the hotel should also be considered that is a commercial use. We'll certainly, clarify anything in regards to the restaurant space. Apologies, just looking at my notes here. I'll let Jordan speak to some of the design components and the setbacks that came up.
Yeah, so I guess one of the issues that was addressed was the setback towards the highway, and we left a lot of area there for that to be shifted, so that 42 feet isn't an issue for us. We can reflect that either now or for the SIP. Some of the commercial, the PK Fitness, as we haven't fizzled out how, they enter and park, we assure you there is adequate parking for the apartments and that fitness, which will be front facing towards Tribeca Drive. And then just the hotel and the restaurant, we did try to provide like a line of sight from Tribeca Drive to draw people to that hotel and that restaurant. And then again, to the walking path. One of the things that was mentioned was just, kind of giving the walkability rating. So we thought we'd provide a bike path that kind of surrounded it. And then the access that's in the existing senior, that's a proposed, just to bring that sidewalk to the edge or that bike path per se.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you for the ability to do that. I just wanted to reiterate some of the items that came up at prior committee, and obviously we do our best to kind of respond to everything. There are certain things that, you know, we're playing with the dynamics of what's feasible, both financially. At this point, you know, there are, you know, costs to having accrued some delays. So we certainly hope that with the changes that we've made, the committee is receptive to our plan, knowing full well that, you know, with the GIP submission, you know, there's going to be a lot of items that are going to be filtered through at the SIP level. And there's going to be obviously a lot more heavy lifting on our end to kind of get this to a space where everyone feels comfortable. We see this as a collaboration with the city of Middleton, and, you know, want to work in stewardship of good partnership and making sure that this community is not only well received, obviously in the near term, but certainly in the long term. So with that, just want to point to, again, you know, there was concerns previously about the proposal eliminated walkable services and created car-dependent development. That actually was feedback we got today as well from the alder, who we appreciate being here and providing his feedback. We did revise our plan to incorporate commercial restaurant space within the hotel. And as it was mentioned, we do have a commercial fitness space within building B3. And again, the hotel itself is commercial. There was concern that this is a residential only development and reduces walkability and sustainability. The commercial uses located along Tribeca Drive support daily activity, pedestrian movement, and reduces the reliance on vehicle trips. There was also comments previously made that the original GIP envisioned mixed-use linear buildings with active ground floors. The revised GDP introduces active ground floor uses consistent with the original Tribeca Village intent. There was a concern of a loss of employment. And again, we want to point to the fact that we're going to have a restaurant, a hotel, and a fitness center. If anyone's familiar with the hotel industry, it's actually a outstanding industry for a wide array of jobs, you know, from hospitality management to obviously with the restaurant service and hotel service. So there's going to be a wide array of different jobs available for individuals with different achievements as far as scholastic. Obviously, when we're looking at the development itself, this is something that's going to create, you know, hundreds of short-term jobs as we kind of move through the development in the different phases. And again, it's going to create permanent jobs when it's done. And lastly, I'll just point to at the last meetings, there was concerns about incomplete or technical information. We were getting into kind of, I don't want to say the weeds, but we were getting very granular about certain things that would be covered at the SIP level. We talked about traffic, utilities, there's landscaping. And again, we did reach out to staff, and, you know, we got confirmation that most of those requests would be something that we can go ahead and acknowledge and clarify at the SIP level. And I certainly don't want to be too long-winded, so I'll just leave it there. And if anyone had any questions or comments, certainly would do my best to answer them.
Anybody?
Are you able to disclose which Hilton brand or which brand Hilton is looking at that location?
It's a great question. Not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only reason why I ask is depending on the brand, you know, some have restaurants attached, many of them don't.
Sure.
So, you know, it's probably not gonna be Hampton Inn because there's one really fairly close down by Menards, but just using that as an example, if they want to come in with the Hampton Inn, they're probably not gonna also say, let's attach a restaurant. So that's just not how that brand of hotel works.
Sure.
And I think there's a Hilton Garden Inn not very far away over by Costco. So, and then that is a brand that they often will attach a restaurant to. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Sure.
You know, if Hilton comes in and says, let's put a brand of hotel here that doesn't work with their business model doesn't work, a restaurant doesn't work with their business model for that brand of hotel, would that even be a viable option right there? Putting a restaurant there. So the other comment I have, while hotels, yes, are commercial space, they're not commercial space for the neighborhood. They might be able to, be a place of employment, but people aren't going there to conduct business unless they have like friends or family who are staying nearby. So.
I just wanted to clarify really quickly, one thing that, Fernando mentioned with regard to the original development plan. I don't know if I misunderstood you or not, but I think you said staff had great intentions with the original plan. And I just wanted to clarify that the original plan was developed by T-Wall. T-Wall created that plan for the Tribeca neighborhood and came in and got the land rezoned for it.
Fernando, the commercial space that you have across the street for was it PK Fitness?
Sure.
Is that space that you originally had identified as commercial?
Not in our original submission, no.
So is that building existing now?
Correction, that's not across the street.
Oh,
If the leader will point to the building B3 that's directly next to the pool.
This is B3.
What's this?
These exist. But there's like a little thin line here.
Oh, sorry, I
Oh, okay,
misunderstood
that's
your
moving
question.
across the
Yes.
street.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's
it's not
pointing to
there
our
currently.
building.
I got you.
Yeah, it's just a label that, yeah.
So that's empty space right now?
That's an existing development.
Right.
It's just multifamily.
It is just multifamily?
Yep, it doesn't have a commercial space.
Okay. The reason I ask is, as I recall, when we first did that Tribeca Drive on would that be the east side?
Yes, that's the east side.
We had commercial space on the first level, but I think we got rid of a lot of that stuff because it wasn't viable.
Well, they had planned to have commercial space, which is why you see the angled parking
Mhm.
in front.
Right.
But they came back and requested a change to remove the ground floor commercial. So it's always just been multifamily.
Yep. Okay.
Commissioner Paulson has his hand raised.
Yeah, two technical questions. First of all, I know that there's adequate parking. There was some discussion in the staff report on parking. Is there enough parking near the hotel for both the hotel and the restaurant? I don't think the number of parking stalls was changed from the last submission.
Yeah, so depending on the hotel, they have criteria that they want us to meet for parking. So we are also providing an underground parking in that hotel as well. So yeah, there's adequate parking for both each room and then for the restaurant as well.
Okay. And did staff review that as well?
We didn't dig into the parking numbers in
Okay.
detail, but we can do that before the next meeting and kind of compare it to a standard zoning district. I think we would need to have more information about the size of the restaurant,
Sure.
seating capacity, things like that.
And then the second question is more for Daphne. This site plan in front of us, this is what was noticed for the public hearing. So if we recommend substantial changes, would we have to do another public hearing? Or how much of the public hearing is covered by any changes? Because I that'll get to my comments later.
Yeah, I think if they were to revise the certain uses that were listed in the public hearing, that would, require a new one. Just because, if they do add, additional commercial space, that wasn't in our original public hearing, so that could require another notice. If they were, just changing the number of units and all of that, I don't think that would require another public hearing, but any new uses would require something.
And
Okay.
I just pulled up the hearing notice and the way it's written is it would allow for 4 multifamily buildings, 1 mixed-use building, a senior living residential building, and a hotel that includes a restaurant.
Okay. So I guess the comment, and maybe ask Fernando to respond, is when we saw this in October, there was near universal concern that there was a lack of commercial. And so you went back to the drawing board and you came back with 2,600 square feet of a fitness store. That doesn't seem like it's really much of a change from October. So tell us again why we should approve this instead of what we were saying in October and asked you to do then.
Yeah, so I do believe also back in October, we hadn't filtered the restaurant space in the hotel. And again, we are of the belief that a hotel space itself is commercial. And just to go back, I guess, to that original meeting, just to kind of reiterate some of those same points, we understand, you know, the want and the ask of having ground floor retail. We can tell you that having done it, and there's a very successful, obviously, development nearby, Middleton Center, that everyone loves and says great things about for very good reasons, but that just stabilized and was a heavy lift. Ground floor retail is not something that is currently successful, which is why, excuse me, individual retail and freestanding retail is what the market is currently looking for. So we certainly did our best to receive all feedback and do our best to incorporate what we felt was feasible. One thing I want to point to is at our original meeting, you know, there was feedback that, you know, we didn't have enough green space. If you look at our plan then compared to our plan now, we've added what we consider, you know, ample green space. And again, we made a conscious effort to, you know, have a very walkable and pedestrian friendly and bike friendly. We'll clarify. I know there was comments about the existing senior and connecting that. Obviously, our intent would be to work with the current owner to ask for an easement and, you know, go ahead and design it so that it doesn't go over any, I forget exactly what was mentioned, but yeah. So Kurt, hopefully that answers your question. We did our best to work within basically the current market dynamics, and we just don't view ground floor retail as something that is successful. And so we are proposing the plan as currently submitted.
But you're not proposing any standalone retail. So I think the concern we had raised, or certainly I think a lot of people have, is 397 units plus all the existing units to the south. And there's no grocery store within, I don't know, a mile? So where do these people get their groceries? So I guess the confusion is, you only looked at commercial that was viable as first floor commercial of a mixed use building. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to think about commercial. So one would be a standalone sort of building, to make it a mixed use neighborhood, but you're saying that the only retail you looked at is first floor retail in a mixed use building.
No, I guess let me correct myself. When we're looking at our development master plan, we look at various different scenarios. This is ultimately what we're submitting. But to answer your question directly, we looked at all different types of retail viability at this site.
So the main changes are 2,600 square feet for a fitness center and then the restaurant added to the hotel.
Those were the additions, correct?
Those were the changes. Okay, that ends my question, sorry.
Okay, anybody else? Randy?
I had, I wanted just to, I had the same feeling that Kurt had that this Smithville is so substantially close to the original one that it doesn't give us much room, to move it forward. I'm personally am supportive of housing at this location, but I think it has to be designed well. I think Tribeca Drive needs to be treated as an urban street. I think that the residential units there have to interact with the street. And I would say we'd want to have a 15-foot setback or something tight along there with some individual entries to the units and to get as much building frontage along Tribeca as we could. I agree that we do need to get some kind of neighborhood destination. It would be really nice to see where building D1 is now at the street edge of that building, for that not to be designated as a senior building, but a senior housing building, but for us to maybe get the fitness center and a restaurant component in that area. Maybe some, I agree with Kurt, it could be a standalone structure, not necessarily embedded into a housing structure. That would be better in my mind if we could get something like that, but if it can't be done, it can't be done. You did try to make some changes to the vehicular circulation, the parking, but it still feels to me like, once you enter the development, you're in a parking lot and you're going to be in a parking lot until you get out of the development. So if there is a way to reconfigure the site plan so that you had some good usable open spaces, and maybe the community facility, the pool and tennis courts or pickleball courts or whatever you've got there, maybe that's internalized more. It's not right on the street face. It feels to me like this is a suburban development that's been placed in what we're trying to become a more urban streetscape. And then one last comment, and I'm not sure why we're not using Canal Street, the Canal Street extension of that, where Canal Street dead ends into the development. Why we're not using that as like one of the main entries into the development, or using Springton Drive as kind of a major entrance into the hotel for an access point. To me, it seems like some of the existing infrastructure we're just not coordinating with or using to its full extent. So those are my comments.
Anybody else? Okay. Any last comments from you, gentlemen?
No, really appreciate your feedback. It's obvious that, you guys read this and we appreciate your feedback.
Thank you.
One
Yep.
last
Abby?
comment. Yeah, Kurt too. I would just encourage, because I'd like to see something move forward on this site. I'd encourage the applicant to come back with a concept plan or two to see if we can't make some progress without going into a full GDP submittal, taking a lot of time and money spent that way.
Kurt?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask what the next step is, that they will have they technically submitted the full GDP?
Yes.
So at the next meeting, we would have to have findings of fact and then vote on the GDP, or is there going to be any?
Did we?
Because it sounds like the site plan has already been submitted as part of the GDP, so we're kind of stuck with where it is now.
Yes, I mean, without seeing what a revised site plan would look like, it's hard for Daphne or me to determine if they would need to go through another public hearing. But the Plan Commission needs to take action on this within 60 days of the public hearing. The ordinance language says within 60 days after the public hearing, which was tonight, the Plan Commission shall make its recommendations regarding the application. Said recommendation shall include issuance of formal findings of fact developed and approved by the Plan Commission. And then if the Plan Commission fails to make a recommendation within 60 days of the public hearing, the Common Council may hold a public hearing within 30 days after the expiration of said 60-day period. Failure to receive said recommendation from the Plan Commission shall not preclude the Common Council from taking final action. Without knowing what the developer's plans are for resubmitting, we would plan to develop findings of fact very similar to the last and recommend denial of the rezoning request. If there is interest in the developer in trying to make changes within the 60-day period to enable us to review it and see if it could fall under the previously noticed hearing, we could potentially work on that with the applicant. Or maybe it makes more sense to deny this request and then have them bring forward a concept review for how they would make changes and work collaboratively with the Plan Commission prior to setting a new hearing.
Can we ask Fernando that? Because Fernando, you're hearing that if you don't make substantial changes, you're likely to get the
I
same
think we'd like
result.
the 60 days to go back and regroup and then follow up as needed.
Okay. Any other comments, Kurt?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, that takes us to item 3 under action plan as the community as Bishop's Bay corporate boundary adjustment.
Yes, so the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee met this evening at 6 p.m. They were looking at the option that is displayed on the screen for shifting the corporate boundary within the community of Bishop's Bay. So the areas that are crosshatched are lands that would come into the city of Middleton that are currently in the town of Westport. The lands that are striped diagonally would go from the city of Middleton into the town of Westport. The proposal results in a net detachment overall loss from Middleton to Westport of 15.7 acres. This detachment was previously discussed by the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee, the Middleton Plan Commission, and the Middleton Common Council, and they supported, the Common Council supported option 2, which at the time was previously described as detaching about 10, or actually about 11 acres. So that was not a drawing that was done by T-Wall's engineering firm, Veerbecker. And so now that we have the legal description and a more accurate drawing, we know that the numbers changed. It is 15.7 acres. However, the boundary is the same as what was previously supported. There also previously were some changes that were proposed for the Onken Road boundary. And at this time, our staff is recommending that we would not address the issues with Onken Road. Those would be brought forward in the future because at this point, there is not alignment between the city staff and the developer. And I'm unsure of the position of Westport at this point with the Onken Road alignment. And because the applicant was interested in moving the boundary adjustment forward more quickly, we recommended that they separate out the Onken Road piece. So at the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee, there seemed to be support for the option that's reflected on the screen. And the committee decided to set a public hearing for Tuesday, March 24th at 6 PM to consider this request. We're just looking to see if the Plan Commission has any additional feedback on this request that can be passed on to the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee. Also, we have Nick here from T-Wall in case you have any questions.
Come on up, Nick.
And Commissioner Paulson has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Just a technical question. I remember for years being on the joint zoning committee, and we went round and round about this land swap basically does not alter any of the kind of overall density in terms of total number of units in Bishop's Bay. It just kind of redistributes which are going to be in which category. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for raising that. And that would also be something that I would want to be sure is in the resolution or ordinance of approval. This would not change the land use plan at all. It would not change the zoning. It would not shift density from the city to the town or vice versa. There would be a future, probably a GDP amendment, amendment to what they originally called the master development plan that would need to be brought forward. But what is being considered here is just the boundary.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll keep it short. Abby did a good job of summarizing the development. So this was in front of joint committee early last year and provided a couple options, as Abby said. We heard your feedback, and what's in front of you. We're just reintroducing option 2. Everything to the west of the solid line, Middleton. Everything to the east of the solid line would be Westport. Yeah, as Abby said, no zoning changes requested, and available for any questions.
Questions, anybody? Lisa?
I have some questions, maybe not necessarily for you, Nick, but some will be. So who benefits from the detachment? And if it isn't Middleton, why are we considering it?
Well, speaking from Joint Commission, the main driving factor here was to, as I recall, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but draw a clean line for emergency services because they could not have a 911 call responding to your neighbor being in one zone and you being in another. That's why was one of the driving forces of why we chose option 2 versus option 1, because it was the cleanest.
And
cut for that.
this problem has been documented somehow? I mean, do we have actual evidence that
We
this?
went, yeah, we were presented with reports about numbers of calls as far as fire response, police response, because for my earlier comments, about the acreage confusion, there were flip-flops back and forth, at one point from Monacan roadside being proposed from single family to a high density multifamily through the, where you're seeing on the boundary there for area 1, we went back and forth with an iteration from single family to all of a sudden a commercial complete use. So there's been a lot of back and forth, and we were presented with numerous numbers as far as how much response would need to be in that area. And
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because it, it doesn't look like the new boundary line is any less irregular than the current one. And it seems that, clearly delineating neighborhoods seems like something that the original current boundary was supposed to do, but then the development plan changed in such a way that it may be creating these issues. Plus Middleton just did a study last year to look at future EMS service possibly combining with Wanakee. So at least for that type of response, this problem might not be a problem in the future. What are the tax impacts and also the impacts on our utility in this area? Because I remember that came up when the original proposal was for 100 acres.
Yep, I recall those discussions as well. And I have to admit, because this was already conceptually supported by the Common Council, I didn't go back and refresh my memory on the tax impact discussion the, any impacts with public safety responses. So if that's something that you want us to dig back into, I would be happy to, but I'm not prepared to answer any of those questions.
No, that's fine for tonight, but definitely by the time this goes to council, I mean, that is something we need to consider. And I would say, speaking for myself, I reluctantly supported option 2. To me, option 0 was the best one, which is no detachment. I mean, I said at the time, going through annexation is that's such a big step that it shouldn't have been done lightly. I'm sure it wasn't done lightly. But it clearly was not thought through 100% by the developer perhaps, which is why now we're being asked to detach land. And that just seems like a really big step that we shouldn't be taking. So I reluctantly supported option 2. I do wonder, where is what happened to the comprehensive revision of the master development plan? That was requested a year ago. Is that what's showing on your,
Yeah, so this gives you a better picture of overall plan and explains the boundary change. I don't know if you have that. You can pull it up on screen, else I can bring this a little bit closer.
I didn't include that because it wasn't submitted for,
okay,
as part of
yep,
the adjustment to the boundary line, and I was concerned that if we went back and attached it, that it would appear that we're considering the land use changes. And I understand why Alder Hanairo is asking the question, because they go hand in hand. But there haven't been any approved changes to the MDP
okay.
so far.
And then if this detachment is proposed, I mean, if it goes forward, what happens with our future land use map? Don't we have to amend it because it would no longer be consistent?
I think it's all shown as a planned neighborhood, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm not sure if the flu map would necessarily need to change. The land use map with the lot types that Nick is showing are not the approved land use plans. Though that's a future proposal that he would be bringing forward.
One note to go back to Lisa's comment about this becoming a less clear, if memory serves, one of the issues in drawing a clearer or straighter line was that there is private entry to some of these parts of the community. And I know that was a barrier, because we all prefer a nice straight.
Go ahead, Randy.
Abby, are we getting the cart before the horse a bit with this boundary adjustment without having a land use plan?
I mean,
That's coordinated with it?
it's a fair question, because they do go hand in hand, but I think when I put this item on the agenda, I thought that there was alignment around this boundary because this was the one that was conceptually supported by the council. And I know at the time that this came forward, our staff also, we would prefer no net loss to the city as well. And it seemed like from the discussion, and I can't remember if it was through formal recommendation or not, but it seemed like there was alignment from our council around this option. And I don't know if it was just because they were presented with one that detached more versus this one, which detached less, and they decided to align around the one that resulted in less detachment from the city. I mean, obviously, we have really substantial growth needs and very limited land to do it. So our preference as staff would always be no detachment, but this was quite a bit of a compromise down from what was originally proposed. I think the original proposal was 100 acres, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
But it is 44% more than what option 2 was presented as. And I know it was, a drawing well, supposedly it was just in the drawing, the boundary's the same, but now that it's been measured, but that's a pretty significant difference.
Mhm.
Were we, back last March, when this first came
Mhm.
up, were we presented with an option 0 of no detachment?
I don't think so.
Okay, so, let's see. Because I didn't think so either. And I think that's why I kind of went with, well, if we are giving an option, if we're not being presented an option of no detachment, let's go with the least amount of detached from the city. At, was it just over 10 or just under 11? Because I think I brought up some points of, this is a deliberate process. This is not an easy process. And once you kind of are successful in getting that, why would you give it up?
And if I may answer, apologies, I don't know all the history of the site way back when, but to my knowledge, when we provided the options, I believe that we had to do this detachment, attachment in order for future development. So we were trying to find a solution that was mutually beneficial to both Westport and to Middleton.
Daphne, if you stop share for just a second, I'll pull up and share the meeting packet from Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee, just as a refresher. This is back in March of 2025. And this was one of the options that was presented. And it was option 1, a net 33.6 acres to Westport. And then this was option 2, which is the same boundary as what's being proposed. The only changes are we're not affecting anything along Onken. And this was option 2, and at the time they thought 10.9 acres to Westport.
So the 10.9, that number was proposed by the developer.
Yes, this was submitted to us.
When you put in, the tenths, it sort of conveys that this is a precise number. And, I feel like that wasn't.
Significant digits imply certain things.
And this is more than a rounding error.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of feel too. Like, I mean, yeah.
Is there a way to do this and get it back to the 10.9 that was the original option too?
Yeah, if I may speak to that. So again, I don't know the history way back then, but I think I see the discrepancy between the two there is between, Abby, if you're able to pull that plan back up.
Sure. I was searching up minutes while you were talking, so let me reshare.
The discrepancy could be Bishop's Parkway, including a portion of that into the Westport attachment. So for when it comes to EMS and everything, that additional neighborhood, what I would refer to as Phase 8 and Bishop's Bay Parkway, that same road to access that piece of land would be attached to Westport. So Bishop's Bay, so the solid line you see along Bishop's Bay Parkway, just north of that, if we were to include, and I apologize, this image is not going to reflect the legal document, but if you remove that line north of Bishop's Bay Parkway, I believe that's the discrepancy between the 10.9 and 15 acres. And that's just so it's all within the same jurisdiction. That public road and the development are both within the same jurisdiction.
Kurt's hand was up and now it's down. Did you change your mind, Kurt?
Well, I was gonna ask, how much of this is driven by the jurisdictional issues of public safety of police and fire, and how much is really driven by the kind of water and sewer infrastructure issues relative to the kind of difference between if it's in the city, it's going to be on water and sewer, and if it's in the town, it's not. I'm trying to remember, does the town have sewer to this area as well, or water and sewer?
Yes, we would have water and sewer to the area.
The city provides water to the town portion. Is
Okay.
my understanding is there, we sell water. There's like a meter at one of the boundaries and we sell water to the town. So it's provided through the city utility, but it's sold to the town, is my understanding.
Okay. So the water and sewer issue is not really driving this then.
I think it is a driving factor because, the city has under agreement that, T-Wall is not able to, bring forward any additional plats within the city portion until, the water and sewer utility infrastructure needs are satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the higher density development that's planned in the city portion. So I think that that is a driving factor for, I could be wrong and Nick will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that that is why they're more inclined to develop land in the town, because it's larger lot and so it doesn't it doesn't have as much need for that loop system that would be required to get any other plats approved in the city.
Well, the minutes from the March 2025 Joint Zoning Committee indicates that the developer preferred option one because they can't make money on the Reserve Hill type lots without financial assistance from the city. So that's what I'm wondering. It seems to me that's the driver. That's probably the big driver. And that's what is making it frustrating for me as a member of council to be, investing a lot of time on top of the time that was already invested years ago when the annexation took place. And I haven't seen, I believe you all have seen the data to show that there's been jurisdiction issues when it comes to emergency response. I'd like to see that for myself, but I trust my colleagues who are on the Joint Zoning Committee, but I just feel like this seems like a way for the developer to make more money on development. And it makes me wonder as a member of council, how much is that worth? Because when we see what the tax impacts and the impact on future development, the cost of utilities, when we see what that's going to be, I wonder if there is some financial compensation that the city would be entitled to ask for in exchange for this detachment.
I'm just going to point out that while we were presented that data sometime before this last meeting. There were multiple changes to this community in between when we had data and the last time we saw this. And obviously there's been a lot of changes that are being proposed. So I would have to back up Alder Nairo in requesting to see more current data because I think we owe it to ourselves to make that assessment.
I thought when we first started talking about this boundary adjustment that we had talked about adjusting the master plan at the same time. And it would be good to see those changes. It's hard to, it's difficult to vote on this independently.
Yeah, and I have the minutes here. It does look like from council action 4-1 of 25. There was a motion and a second to endorse development concept number 2 from Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee with the understanding that this action is intended to guide the preparation of a comprehensive update of the master plan, as well as initiate the steps necessary to adjust the shared municipal boundary with the necessary approvals from the Plan Commission and Council.
So we've skipped over the first part and into the second part.
Yes, and they have brought like conceptual changes to the master development plan, but at this point, there hasn't been any support from Plan Commission for the changes. There was, I remember that there was one concept that was being proposed that had like 62 multifamily buildings that were all almost the same size. I don't know if you remember that proposal.
Well, yeah, the minutes from last year's joint zoning committee meeting says that there's a need for a comprehensive rewrite of the master development plan to reflect the reality of the phases that have been built, as well as the updated vision for completion of the remainder of the development. So I'm glad you found that motion from the council meeting, because that was a big part of it.
And if I may speak specifically to the master plan, and I'll coordinate more with Abby on this, but I hesitate just because the town center is so large. I'm wondering the best way to provide something to you without, the town center is probably 20 years down the road as each portion is built out. And I would hesitate to bring something to you that I know will change again. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to do this with a specific implementation plan for each phase. Because the goal here with this boundary change is for to fit in the next piece of the puzzle. And obviously we want you to have the whole piece of the puzzle, but just wonder if there's and Abby and I will discuss as far as what and coordinate with you guys is what would be the best process there.
Any other feedback?
Kurt?
I'm not sure that we can condition a boundary adjustment on any change to the land use plan. I think it's a separate legal process. So, Abby, can you remind us there's going to be a public hearing on the boundary adjustment at the joint zoning committee, and then it would go to then it would come to us for recommendation, and then it would go to council?
That's my understanding of the process. I know we would need to get a resolution, I think, approved at, I don't recall if it's the joint zoning committee or the plan commission, and then the council would need to effectuate this through an ordinance change. And that would just be for the boundary, not including the rezoning.
Okay,
So I can work with the city attorney and determine what the next steps are. I guess the joint zoning committee supported holding a hearing on the 24th, but I would be concerned about, if we need at least a concept of how the master development plan is going to change. I don't want to go forward with holding the hearing if it's gonna end up being invalidated because of a timeline issue or anything like that. So I just think I need to work with Matt to determine what the next steps should be.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. To item 4, it's the ordinance to revise and replace chapter 33 of the lighting ordinance. And we are just looking for a recommendation to council to keep the lighting ordinance as amended in the first reading, as recommended by staff anyway.
Yes, so what brought this up was, so the lighting ordinance was at council last week, but we received very detailed email with a lot of technical feedback from a lighting technician, and so the main portion that, that council had asked us to bring back to plan commission was this section that's highlighted here. Discussing, 3,000, allowing fixtures of 3,000 lumens or lower. And so, he suggested removing that. And so when I went back and I looked at our model, the model ordinance that we had, based off of, our ordinance is based off of that, this language was included in that model ordinance. And I think the purpose of it is really just to give a little bit more flexibility. So if someone wanted, a higher lighting intensity in a certain area, they could, have 2 or 3 fixtures at this 3,000 lumen to get that higher intensity. Whereas, we would require just, either a typical like 0.5 foot candles all across the board. And so this just gives, I think, the lighting technicians a little bit more flexibility if they were looking for a specific intensity. And so we recommend keeping it in the ordinance for now. And since we haven't really adopted our lighting ordinance yet, it'd be good to, have a couple of years in our belt just to see how people are using it that way.
Okay, Randy?
I would agree with Daphne. I think there's gonna be a lot of potential changes to the lighting ordinance, just like there was to the zoning ordinance. Hold off for now.
So does anybody want to move a recommendation?
I'll recommend that the lighting ordinance move forward as originally proposed.
In the first reading?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Anira.
Hey, any discussion or further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion- Okay, thank you. Motion is approved. That takes us to item 5, the subdivision ordinance, committee review of the full draft. Do we have any feedback on the full draft? Has anybody read the full draft?
I tried to outline specific areas. You didn't have to read the whole thing, but.
I looked at the sections that I was interested in. Let's put it that way.
Well, you read something, that's
Yeah.
good.
So, the things that I was interested in were the street cross sections, the street widths. And I just wanted to make sure that we were not requiring street widths that were any larger than they had to be. I'd like to encourage narrower streets wherever we could. And it seemed like there still might be some adjustments possible, but I'll leave that up to staff to work.
Don't narrow streets eliminate bike lanes?
Narrow streets keep cars slower. So I think that's the main thing. And yeah, bikes and cars will have to navigate together. The other item that I was interested in particularly was the street trees. We're suggesting street tree spacing of 80 foot on center, minimum of 80 foot on center. And I think the current recommendations are anywhere from 30 to 60 feet. So I think that spacing ought to be looked at again. To me, having adequate shade on a sidewalk is one of the things that makes it a pedestrian friendly sidewalk. And then to go along with that, I think we need to make sure that our terraces are wide enough to support street trees. If we have street trees we have terrace recommendations of 5 foot, and I think that's pretty minimal to support a healthy street tree.
And then you get a street tree near sidewalk and.
Yeah.
And you have problems with the sidewalk and.
Right.
More expense for the homeowner to repair the sidewalk.
Or the city.
Well, both. Yeah.
Both, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just.
I think the street width has in the past at least somewhat been, pushed by the fire department for ability to maneuver trucks. And I understand that, but there are options.
Commissioner Paulson has his hand
Oh.
raised.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, I have a lot of questions, sorry. As you can imagine.
No.
So with regard to the feedback requested by staff in the staff memo on multifamily CSMs, Daphne, I'm trying to remember, I thought we did discuss this in the past or something, but I would like to keep it to the current limit of no more than 4 parcels and require anything else to be a plat,
Okay.
even though state law was recently changed to allow multifamily more than 4 parcels in a CSM. I would still want to see it as a plat.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if we had done that before. Is our current one 2 or is it 4?
Our current one is 4.
4. Okay, then I would like to keep it at 4. And that's largely just because, if we're concerned about all sorts of things about design or circulation, then just allowing someone to do a bunch of kind of successive CSMs doesn't seem to really make sense. On number 2, with regard to waivers, and again, I apologize if I missed this language. In 19.03.07, in the draft subdivision ordinance, seems to adopt language that is similar to a zoning variance about undue hardship. And I'm trying to remember when we added the waiver requirement to zoning, we used a much less strict standard of instead of hardship, where it's where literal application would cause to allow that a developer could meet the intent and the standards of the ordinance, but not literally, and that allows the plan commission to adopt a waiver, I guess with a less strict standard. And I'm trying to remember why we chose the kind of more strict variance language here in the draft of 19.03.07.
Yeah, so for the zoning ordinance, we allowed plan commission to make certain waivers to, I believe it was specifically like design standards, so.
Design, yeah.
Yeah, so that was very, we have that whole article, just specifically focused on design standards, so plan commission can waive, certain features in any of that section. And so that was why, we were able to give plan commission that jurisdiction just, as a contingency to waive certain things. I believe this is, for any part of the subdivision ordinance, you could waive certain things. And so that was, I believe, why we wrote it as plan commission and common council, and included this hardship language, just because it can be, any certain type of waiver could be requested through this section.
So would we need to then, as we implement this, we would need to have kind of findings of fact as to why we are recommending a waiver of a certain standard?
Right. I don't know if it would have to be exactly a findings of fact, but yeah, like a formal statement, like what a ZBA would do, where they would have a specific hardship that was identified, and it would be definitely a little bit more formal than what we have done previously in plan commission.
Okay. And then with regard to parkland dedication, you would ask for feedback, and I would just prefer to keep it a city practice rather than mandate this. Actually, we should defer to Nick on this. But I would think that I think the issue of asking PRFC to recommend on dedication is the concern that it's not just the acreage of land that's dedicated, but the kind of quality and location of the acreage that is dedicated. So I think we want to, the screen only shows half of what shows up there, so I can't, I forget what it actually says.
Like, are you talking about the standards for dedicated land here?
Yes. Your staff memo asked for feedback on referral through PRFC, and I'm trying to figure out where in the process that we would get a feedback from PRFC on this paragraph 6 of standards for dedicated land.
And I
Because
had
we,
asked a question at our PRFC meeting last week. And it sounds like it's standard practice just to have it go to PRFC first, but it's not a requirement.
Mhm.
So I guess my question I had was, if a developer comes and says, I want to skip that step, is there anything to force, can we force them to say, or is it possible for us to say, no, you have to do this without that being written into the ordinance?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what we have discussed, I think as staff, is to write in something. I think there was maybe a section earlier or later than this where we said, you know, it has to be congruent with the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which is basically where we would have all of, you know, the future parkland identified as well. And then also it would have to, you know, follow these standards. And so what we could do is we would write, you know, it has to be congruent with the corp and, you know, follow these standards. If not, you know, we can kick it to PRFC in that case. And so that is something that we had discussed, and then it just didn't make it into this draft. So, yeah, if that is something that, you're interested in adding, that's certainly something we
Yeah,
can do.
I just feel like, you know, we have the PRFC, they should be seeing, you know, having an opportunity to review all parkland dedication proposals.
Yeah.
I agree, and either write it as the plan commission may, or we might want to write it as the plan commission shall seek the advice and feedback of the PRFC.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of practices that we don't have codified somewhere, because like Commissioner Adams is alluding to, what's our recourse? If someone says no, yeah, we don't want to go through PRFC. And PRFC has made some changes to plans that were good ones. And we, you know, maybe the plan commission overlooked it or would have if it hadn't been for our PRFC rep.
Which is why the rep's on plan commission.
Exactly.
And PRFC has to manage and maintain the land, so,
And program it.
and program it, yeah.
Anything else, Kurt?
That's it for now.
You sure?
For now.
Yeah, there were only 4 requests for feedback in that memo, so I only gave 3. So.
There was a number 5, and that was the lighting. And the question was, should public lighting follow similar standards as our new dark sky outdoor lighting ordinance? And I think we should.
Yes.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, I'll declare the meeting closed. Or adjourned, whatever.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I found it appointment of Kurt Sonnentag to the Middleton Westport. Joint Zoning Committee.
Wait, where?
May 20